became one of his students. And ultimately, he became the greatest sorcerer in the world. In his search for healing, he found the Ancient One.
What do you think it is about Doctor Strange? Is it he's like a regular person, although a superior human in his abilities as a neurosurgeon, and obviously having a photograph memory and being able to, he's arrogant, but go to Kathmandu and look for the Ancient One, and humbled himself, basically is what he ended up doing. I think people like that because he was a regular person and then he became this sorcerer and he had to learn how to do that.
I think a lot of people, when they go to a superhero movie, they want to see a little bit of themselves in the superhero.
I think people just want to feel like we're more than what we are, that there's abilities out there that we would strive to achieve and garner if we could, because just being human is just not enough. We want to be more than that. We want these superpowers so we can be a great human being, a superhuman. And yeah, it was.
That was stupid.
But kids did the stuff like that, though.
The kid in us doesn't really die, though. We want to have a connection with the divine. We want to have a connection with something greater than ourselves. And the comic book, the superhero movie, is America's anthem. It's America's story. We want, and when you look at most comic book stories and pictures, you see people, you see the character going through what we call the origin story, how they went from being a normal person to being a superhero. And we want that.
Yes, we do.
We want that.
All right.
He eventually learned that he could practice magic better than he thought he could, and he did heal his hands.
Yes.
It was primordial force created from particles of consciousness.
Okay,
all of us have within us.
The name of exactly what that kind of fire was. Okay.
Is primordial fire. All of us have within us primordial elements as well as material elements, earth, air, fire, and water, but we also have primordial earth, primordial water, and we've taught this before. But we don't believe that we can bring it out and use it. But what we don't realize is that the entire dream state and all the higher worlds are made of primordial elements. We use those elements every day. All of the physical elements around us condense from the primordial elements. So when a person trains and focuses, and it may take months to get in touch with your primordial force, as he showed, but you eventually can get in touch with it and bring it out and use it. When she made him go to the mountaintop, and he either had to get over his skepticism or die, one or the other. And it's in many people, it's often that decision that you have to make. He couldn't make the decision until he had to make the decision. She left him up there, and nobody was going to go get him.
Right.
We have our tools and the things that we teach connect us with those forces, but most people stop after trying for a few days or a few weeks and say, I can't do it. And he had done it for months before he was even able to connect with it. And then only under duress, only under the threat of life and death. We all have, if you practice for an hour every day for 6 months, you could do with our tools a lot of the stuff that you found that you saw on the movie. That is an absolute promise. But you have to practice sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day, every day, before those things will work for you. People take it for granted because it doesn't work immediately. We've been Hollywoodized too much. We think that after a few minutes it should work.
Right.
But most of us don't want it to work too fast because it would scare us. So we work for a little bit, then we put it away. But those things, everything they're showing in that movie is real.
It's like he's practicing and practicing. He will tell me to do those kind of things.
If you notice in the movie, Dr. Strange was asleep while his astral self was reading books and getting books. If you noticed, he had the book in his hand astrally. It wasn't the physical book. He had the energy of the book that he was absorbing. I do that every night. And that's how I bring so many books and so much information back from these spiritual worlds. I bring it back energetically, and I sit and I memorize what I see, and then I put it down in physical form. That's exactly what he did in the movie. That's exactly how all the books, the demonium, the tablets, etc., came into this world. Time doesn't exist. There's no such thing as time. If you look at time in our world, it is chopped up in so many different ways that it doesn't really exist except as a convenient way of measuring energy. We measure the energy of what we call a day, or measure the energy of what we call a night, or the energy of what we call a second. But in and of itself, time has no existence. The greatest force in our world, the greatest force in the universe, is will. The ability to make a choice. You can create something from nothing just by thinking about it and imposing your will over the fabric of the imagination. And that's what they showed. Weapons came out of nowhere. Mandala talismans came out of nowhere. They can open doorways that can make you travel from one place to another. We can all do that, except we give away our willpower to skepticism, anxiety, and fear. World. We can all do that. Yes, it was. There's a real library that I go to that's exactly like that every night. And the books that we have on our shelves, there's 36 books that I've written now. They all came out of that library in the same way that he went there. There is a person that keeps them. There are books in there that glow like that. And there are books in there that I'm not even allowed to touch yet. And those books are for higher gods. I've only been able to touch books that are written for elevated humans, immortals, intermediate level gods, and enlightened masters. I've not been able to touch the celestial god level books. When you do that enough, it lets you see that time as we believe it exists is not real. That the concept of time is not real. That astral traveling shows you that the reality that we take for granted is all around us. And that's one thing that I really like the ancient one showed him. She showed him how many dimensions are right around the corner.